Better to die fighting for freedom than be a prisoner all the days of your life. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Today, the media is being held captive by the government. There seems to be a self-imposed censorship coming to play once again in this island nation. On the 8th of January 2015, people voted in a new government thinking that they will be able to express their speech free without any suppression. There will be democracy in the island nation. There won't be impunity in this nation. However, now things are looking different. At that time, people said that this was a revolution, a rainbow revolution. However, what we are witnessing now is somewhat a slide back into the era that we never wanted again in this nation. We saw in the year 2007 J.S. Tisnagam being arrested and being remanded and then being imprisoned for 20 years in prison. We saw individuals like Arthur Vamanan being arrested by the government, bring in the Prevention of Terrorism Act. However, these were not endorsed by not even those in Sri Lanka but also the international community. Henceforth, things changed. The best example was the 2015 presidential poll. Where are we now sliding back into? There is a discussion right now regarding the draft of the Independent Council for News Media Standards Act. This very clearly states that the sources of media institutions should be revealed. However, as a network, we have carried out many exposés throughout the nation and also throughout the years. We had Action TV revealing the names, revealing those individuals who have been held accountable, responsible for misdeeds in Sri Lanka. We had the Expropriation Act expose. We had the stock market scandal expose. Then we had the central bank bond controversy expose. All this happened because of media ethics that guided us, guided media networks like Newsfirst. However, when you reveal the names of those who have been giving you the information, would they come forward in the future? What is the government trying to do? It seems that they have also put on a mask. It is time now for the government to think what they are really doing. The government should take accountability for what was promised to the people of this nation. Tonight on our show, our discussion revolves around the draft of the Independent Council for News Media Standards Act. To discuss all this and more, we have with us three individuals in our studios on Face the Nation tonight. Let me introduce them to you. Joining us for the first time on the show is President's Counsel, Mr. U.R. De Silva, who is the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Nice to have you on board, Mr. De Silva. Also joining us this evening is Dr. Pratibha Mahanamaheva, Attorney at Law, also one-time Human Rights Commission. Nice to have you on the show as well, Dr. Mahanamaheva. Also joining us on the show is no stranger to Face the Nation, Mr. Shamindra Ferdinando, News Editor of The Island. So let's start off tonight's show with Dr. Pratibha Mahanamaheva, who is a senior attorney at law and also a commissioner of the Human Rights Commission, a one-time commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. Dr. Mahanamaheva, when you heard about this particular draft that is being discussed, what came to your mind at the first instant?
Actually, the first thing which came to my mind, 100 days program, because several promises were given 100 days program. So one thing is whereby the 19th Amendment as well as the Right to Information Bill was introduced, and that is where the freedom was given and according to them democracy was established. But later they were thinking little bit a different way. Even the freedom given, most of the media, specifically electronic media, website, the way they act, the way they disclosure information, specifically head of the state has given this indication many times. Facebook, Twitter, maybe other website. So little bit embarrassment for the government. So that's why this draft was basically came up with the Secretary of Media Reform. But before that, there were certain attempts. Now, one case I have, this was decided in 1997, Atukorla and others versus Attorney General, where they tried to come up with the proposed regulatory authority to control the media. In that case, the Supreme Court decided it is unconstitutional at that time, because luckily we have Article 14(1), freedom of expression. And also they try to control the electronic media with this bill. But one different thing is there, this bill. Earlier the bill, the power was given to the minister. But here under the new bill, it is coming to a so-called independent commission. I'll explain one by one. But one thing I like to say, the Supreme Court specifically said one thing: broad, general or vague restriction on freedom of expression are unacceptable. And also regulatory simply issued the qualification provided by law also unaccepted. If they want to pass this bill, you have to go for a 2/3 majority in the parliament as well as referendum. So that time government, they didn't proceed with this. This is 1997. And there were certain attempts after that coming up with broadcast bills to control. Because any government, before coming to power, they give certain things, and websites really support it. And the media really support it. After 6 months, if these are not fulfilling what they do, they basically criticize it. So the government says certain things, because we are not introducing this bill only to curtail or restrict freedom of information. The true information should be gone. Code of conduct must be introduced. So this was there for several months. Now this is not actually agreed by the cabinet. This was earlier sent to the cabinet disagree. 4 or 5 people cannot prepare a bill like this. So now what they do, they take to 25 districts and try to get the public opinion. So there is nothing to worry at the moment. This is only a draft. Even several drafts were prepared by Sri Lanka Law Commission Department and other places. So this is a draft for public attention and public discourse.
Dr. Mahanam, even bringing in a draft of this nature, it's not coming in as a white paper, unfortunately. No media institution is consulted, despite the fact the Director General of the Media Ministry says that they have been able to consult the media on this. Don't you think that this is being brought again from the back door?
No. There were several meetings with media people, but there was no one to come up with a draft like this. So this is where the former UNESCO consultant, the person who was involved in drafting the RTI bill, was involved. Several times the journalists gathered, but there was no competent person to draft a bill. That's why the mineral came into this scene. Thereafter, they prepared a draft, and media as well as journalists are benefiting also, and there are certain things I disagree. In a later stage, section by section, I will explain to you how this really benefit for you also. There are certain sections.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pratibha Mahanam, attorney at law as well as a one-time Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. I now move my attention to Shamindra Ferdinando, news editor of The Island. Shamindra, this bill raises an eyebrow as far as investigative journalists are concerned. It says very clearly that you have to reveal your sources. This is an individual who has been carrying out and publishing articles with regard to investigations over the years. I recollect how you have been able to expose many different discrepancies within the government, even during the Rajapaksa time, and even subsequently as an individual who has been involved very heavily on investigative journalism. Isn't this a blow to individuals like you?
I don't think so. Actually, you cannot control the media today by introducing this kind of thing. No way. Maybe in 70s, 80s, up to 2000, you could have brought in laws to control media. But with today's world, with the social media, with the electronic media and the print media working together, anybody having information, if his organization is not ready to publish it, he goes to somebody else. So you cannot control people getting information by bringing in laws in parliament. That is number one. And you must also realize why they bring in this law. Now if they feel, if the government believes that it can control things by bringing in laws, they are very wrong. See, because maybe they should have taken action before they allowed the central bank robbery to take place, right? You have UMA over here. You have garbage problem. The entire country, all sectors in total chaos, right? So what you can control? You simply cannot do anything. Even if you pass this law tomorrow, if these corrupt political parties agree, give 2/3 majority and pass it, you cannot control the media, right? They cannot. They simply cannot, because if I am unable to get my story published in my newspaper for some reason, I can always give it to you, and it's already happening. So in this age, with social media, people working together for one objective, nobody, no government can control media. The US government, they have a lot of power, a lot of influence, but the WikiLeaks operation, somebody within the administration, the military, they release everything.
But this is something very similar to that was said when the Prevention of Terrorism Act was introduced by the previous government.
Not previous government. It was introduced during President Jaya Javan's time. There was a requirement to introduce PTA. We were fighting the LTT, and there was need to take action.
The point is, Shamindra, everyone thought that media will not be penalized, but in the year 2007 we saw how J. Sissanagam was imprisoned. And then he was imprisoned for 20 years, rigorous imprisonment, and then he was released 3 years after.
Yes.
He served a sentence of 3 years, and then he was released by President Mahinda Rajapaksa on Press Freedom Day. But the point is, having a law itself puts a self-imposed censorship on the media.
In 80s, in 87-88 period, we were under censorship. At that time, the print media had to take all their copy to the competent authority and get approval. They used to remove whole chunks of the stories, right? So, over the years, the situation changed, and then there were subsequently the governments in power offered journalists houses, laptops, foreign trips, various things. So you try to control people by you try to influence journalists by rewarding them, or you put pressure on them, and you allow the people working in the private media to join the state media, or you allow a certain person to work as the coordinating secretary, coordinating media officer to some minister. So there are ways and means of things. It is not only somebody bringing in a law to control things.
No, but when you really look at it, Shamindra, in the 80s, we are very well aware, we are cognizant about how the censorship took place. Then we were also aware from the year 2006 to 2015, many journalists were harassed or either killed. We saw Lasantha Wickramatunge being killed. We saw Prageet Eknaligoda, who is we are still trying to find out where he is. His whereabouts are still not known. We saw Tharuki, who was the editor of the Tamil web at that time, was also being killed just opposite the parliament. His body was dumped. So there was a self-imposed censorship. My question is very simple to you. A bill like this pushes the media to this stage once again, isn't it?
I don't think so, because we will survive. Whatever they do, you cannot control media today. You simply cannot, because this government, the Yahapal and the leaders, right, up to 2015, say March, April, until the central bank scam took place, they, the Yahapal and the leaders very publicly thank social media, right, openly. And I have seen the president saying that I think he appreciated the social media for helping to defeat the former SLP-led government. But today, once the media get together, once the print media, the electronic media, the social media get together and hammer the government, they think of doing things. But still, whatever they do, I don't think they cannot control the media. No.
Would you be in a position to reveal a source that gives you a story? Would you do it? Someone calls you up and says, in confidentiality, I'll give you a file. And then you go ahead and publish that particular story in question.
Maybe I think it says that if it affects the national security, something like that.
And who's going to interpret that? Who's going to interpret that?
No, I mean, it's up to the media to take a stand on this. And whatever happens, we will not reveal our sources. And we have not so far. Never.
Thank you very much, Shamindra, for your thoughts as well. Media is not in a position to reveal their sources. That was the news editor of The Island, Shamindra Ferdinando. I now move my attention to Mr. U.R. De Silva, President's Council, Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Mr. De Silva, first of all, nice to have you on the show, by the way, and congratulations on your appointment as the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka a couple of months ago, and here you are today on Face the Nation. Now, the government promised something. That was to have a transparent system to discuss everything that comes into play. However, this has not happened. We saw how the Inland Revenue Act was brought into Parliament. We saw how just prior to the April holidays, there was another bill that was brought by the Parliament, and then now you have this, the draft of the Independent Council for News Media Standards Act. My question is very simple. Your organization represents the law fraternity of Sri Lanka, the Bar Association itself. Have you all been consulted?
First of all, I must tell you that I came to this discussion because now you all have started this discussion. That is what we want actually. So far, they have not asked anything with regard to this bill or some other bills also. We are waiting the government to respond to our request that they should send us the bill before they put it to the Parliament. Some of the bills they asked us to come and then they ask our views, and we the quite important example would be representing a person in police custody. So it was the draft bill that was presented to the Parliament, but we objected to that, and we say that from the beginning a lawyer should be there to help a suspect, and thereafter while the investigations are going on, if it is necessary, the lawyer should be there. So those things, of course, they discuss with us. At the moment, the government is considering whether they should allow the lawyer to be present when when the suspect is arrested by the police. So likewise, what I say is, if they consult us, then we have a lot of eminent lawyers with us. So they, and then mind you, this in this particular council, a lawyer is going to head the council. So it is the duty of the government to consult the Bar Association, because the Bar Association will play a major role. Today I am giving you the personal information, but when we go to the Bar Council, we will inform the Bar Council with regard to this bill, and we will appoint a committee to go into this, and then thereafter we'll discuss.
But without even having a draft in your hand, Mr. De Silva, how can you even discuss this?
That is right. So
the government has to give you a draft to discuss.
It's been published. Draft is published. So we have to go through. And I went through the draft, and it is specifically said that it's only a draft, and they are asking us to give our opinion or our views with regard to that.
The publishing happens for the masses to read, not particular organizations. Now let's take a look at the Inland Revenue Act. We saw in different stages how the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce was consulted in a case like this, there is no consultation.
That's
For example,
correct,
the Bar
yes.
Association of Sri Lanka has not been consulted, according to you.
So I don't know whether they
will
will do it, because the Mahanama Heba told us that nobody was there to prepare this bill, because it's the first time that it is coming up, and I think somebody has come out and then drafted this bill. So we must go through it. This is not a finality. So it is specifically mentioned that it's only a draft. So that's why I said I must thankful to you all to take the initiative for the public to know this type of a bill, and then they will respond to this bill, and then we will go through. And he said, now we must go through each and every clause and see what are the pros and cons of this particular act, and then only we can come to a final conclusion. My personal view is that some media people, that they are going without any control. So as Ferdinand quite correctly pointed out, we can't control Toto. So the media, if the media is going beyond the control of citizens, the citizens have lot of liabilities, and they want the press should do mostly control their views before publishing it. So that is the very careful thing.
But Mr. Silva, even as you speak right now, there is a press complaints commission established in Sri Lanka, which has been regulated, which has a head as well, and whenever someone has a problem, they can go to the Press Complaints Commission and lodge a complaint, and they do take action accordingly. And as a result of that only, we see in print media that you also have to give a right to the aggrieved party. So the next morning you might see an article published saying this is the response to this particular article that was published, so on and so forth. But the government is now even looking to repeal this commission.
No, my personal view is that press council was there earlier, but it doesn't have more power. So what the government is going to do is they are giving more power to this particular council, and then it has 13 members. So
now, Mr. Silva, let me put this very simple to you. Now let's say what happened recently, Sarana Gunawardana's court case, where he was found guilty of not revealing his assets. How much was he fined? 1,000 rupees.
That is not sufficient. That's correct. You are quite correct of that, because
my
we have to
question is
amend
very
that
simple. Why are you
clause,
trying
yes,
to suppress the media when there is so much that you have to work on? Bring in the code of conduct for parliamentarians. Ensure that every parliamentarian in the legislature reveals their assets, not just fine 1,000 rupees.
Yes, yes.
Mr.
That is
Silva.
perfectly right, because we have to amend that particular act and give more power to the
Has the government got its priorities right, Mr. De Silva?
Sorry?
Has the government got its priorities right?
Priority, they have given priority to that, because they are working with the people, because as you know, the Prime Minister wanted to give some code of conduct lectures to the parliamentarians. He asked them to come to a particular place to give them that knowledge, but unfortunately what happened? So they never came. So that is what they are doing, because they have the power. So that is why they want to show that if you are going to control it, we know what we should do. So likewise, this is also in a way we should go in to details and see whether it is going to prohibit the media people, or it would help them to do proper job. And unnecessary people who are doing unnecessary things should be bring to the books.
Thank you very much, Mr. U.R. De Silva, President's Council, also the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, for joining us this evening. We're looking forward to grilling you further on the draft of the Independent Council for News Media Standards Act that is proposed by the government at this point of time. Let me open the floor for questions. On to my far left is Chaturang Hapwarachi. On to my immediate left is attorney at law Sonali Vanigabaduge, and on to my immediate right tonight is Faraz Shakutali. Before I open the floor for us, I want to pose a question to you as well. You are also the editor-in-chief of a newspaper, the Ceylon Independent. Would you expose your source?
No, never.
And why would that be? What's the reason for
That's because in all the years that I've been writing, I have almost always, bar one particular file, been told that they want the informant, the whistleblower, would like to remain anonymous, and it is on that basis that they provide this information. None of the documentation and information that we've got in terms of the central bank bond matter, for example, it was given at grave personal risk to those people working there, and there's absolutely no way this investigation would have come this far had there been a requirement to finally disclose those sources.
Absolutely, Faraz, spot on. And I think on the 8th of January, the government promised freedom of expression. Is that on the cards? And then Mr. U.R. De Silva said about Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe having a code of conduct for parliamentarians, and parliamentarians did not even attend. However, for us, when you look at the conduct of the Prime Minister himself in Parliament over the last few months,
it's absolutely disgraceful.
I think the high echelons of the government needs a code of conduct for themselves before even introducing something of that sort to other parliamentarians. I open the floor for questions. So let's start off with Chaturanga.
Thank you very much, Sam. I want to pose the first question to Mr. Fernando. You spoke about the matters that are needing urgent attention from the point of view of the government. We spoke about the dengue problem, the garbage problem, issues like this. Bringing forward the Independent Council for Media Standards Act, is this necessary, or is the government having the hand in all the wrong pies at the moment?
Chaturanga, if they want, they believe that by bringing this law, they can control the media. I earlier explained that they cannot control the media, right? Now, say if one person, now that central bank report, the first report, now that report, somebody put it on the internet, right? If somebody is unable to go to the media, the print media or the electronic media directly, you have the facility today to reveal it to the world. So by bringing this stupid law, I don't think they can achieve anything. You cannot control media today, right? If I am unable to give reveal something through my newspaper, I give it to CSR, right? Or Swatwine or some other organization willing to carry it. So it's a new game. I don't think these people realize what's really happening.
But Mr. Fernando, there are obviously people advising the government or advising the people who are compiling these bills and acts and laws like this about what is going on in the world. Obviously, they are aware of the internet and the enormous, numerous benefits that are there through the internet. So why are they still continuing to try out new things like this? And
various people promote various projects. They have agendas. You have funds. You receive funds from embassies, right? So if you take all the organizations in this country, including the Bar Association, over the years they have received funds from various sources, right? When you receive funds from USAID or some other organization, you have to carry out their orders. It is simple as that. When a journalist is given a house, a laptop or something, a bank loan, you have to take the orders. So all the governments did it, and these people are also doing it. So this is, I think, a foolish attempt to control the media. And now see, they had elections in parliamentary polls in August 2015. Next month, complete in 2 years, right? Election in 3 years, right? So even if they bring in this law tomorrow, what they can do? The entire world knows about Umayyad, right? How the previous government involved the Iranian in that project, and these people are struggling to control the situation. You take the garbage problem, you take the item, every issue, right? The people are aware. You cannot hide things, right? Now, as an example, now you take the central bank issue, the central bank scam, the bond scam. The whole thing's out. Now, I don't think the SLAP can continue with the UMP after August. After the commission hands over the report to the president, and the president requests the AG to take action on the report, I don't think the SLAP can continue with this government. No way. So even if you have this tomorrow, it's irrelevant.
Mr. Mahanamewa, I want to ask a question from you as well. Now, we know that there are issues that, like Mr. Fernando pointed out, the government needs to look into. But you also mentioned that there will be several benefits to the media organizations through this bill. What I'm sure there are, you will point them out later on, but what's the point of having the benefits if the basics are not there, like what we've spoken about, revealing the sources? That's one main thing. So what point is there when there are benefits, when the main things are missing?
I totally agree what you say, but this is not a government bill. This is prepared by Vijayananda Jayavir. So this was a request by the journalists to abolish the Press Council Act. As a result only this came up. 100-day program, what was the voice from all journalists? Abolish 1979 Press Council Act. So then journalists goes together. Certain lawyers got together. They were looking for a draft. So there is a beginning. And still this has not given to cabinet. This is now with public consultation. Now basic facilities should be there. Even I can remember Honorable Dharmasiri Senanayaka, when he was the media minister, he is a really person who gave identity card to go some other place and open a room at least to rest him. So likewise, certain governments had done certain things. Now I like to say certain things. Number one, this is where some group prepared, and now what will happen? Another group is going to take public views.
But Mr. Mahanamewa, now we saw at the cabinet press briefing organized on the 5th of this month, the Director General of Government Information coming forward and saying, look, this is what happened. This is the reason behind the draft bill that you're talking about. We provided to the cabinet of ministers.
No, they have not accepted. They have not accepted.
That's the point that I'm trying to raise. Ministers of the cabinet are telling that they are unaware of what's happening. So then how can the government, Director General of Government Information say, look, we have provided this to the...
No, he can't say like that. That is totally misleading information. But I went through this draft very carefully. Section 16 of the draft is very clear. Journalists has the right to organize themselves, professional bodies and trade unions, their own choice. So that is something good. And you are getting, for us, the minimum salaries. There are certain things. So people are adding many things. And one thing I don't like, this press council, as he said, very clearly, Ferdinand said, the right not to disclose the source. That is in section 9. But remember, however, High Court may order the disclosure of information identifying a confidential source here.
No, it is wrong. That is not High Court, that is Supreme Court.
No, High Court.
No, it's there. The other draft is there.
So, now look, see, how many drafts are there?
Exactly.
I have the latest draft. So, he said also a draft.
Supreme Court.
So, now, this...
So, there is clearly an issue there.
I am telling, right. Okay, High Court or Supreme Court, that's another issue. That means people are still adding these things. Another thing, where the defamation part. Now, after setting up the council, you can't directly go for a case. Now, what you have to do, you have to deposit some money also. That's why section 40 say, no one shall file a defamation case in the judicial courts against a news media outlet registered under this act without first having had the matter examined via complaint to the council. Why should we do that? And also it clearly say, any person going for the case, 10% of the damage you are asking, the monetary compensation has to be deposited. Are these fair? Are these fair, I am asking. So likewise, we can discuss one by one. So many things are there which are not totally agreed by the journalists. Now the journalists are also not agree for this.
But Mr. Mahanamewa, during the Rajapaksa administration, Navi Pillai said that there was a real concern that they had was that there was a growing authoritarianism in this country. But do you agree that actually under this government there is a growing authoritarianism? We have seen that from time and time again in terms of the bond and the investigation that was fobbed off at the beginning with this infamous 3-member committee and so on and so forth. It is now over 2 years the whole thing's entrenched into the system, and we had the Prime Minister fighting lock, stock and barrel on behalf of Mr. Arjuna Mahendran until the President refused that. So when you take all these bits about, when they award unsolicited bids, contracts for the highways, that's another component of this growing authoritarianism. They paint a nice rosy picture that they can for the European Union to get the GSP Plus and so on and so forth. But in actual practice, there is this growing sense of authoritarianism, and the international community is very, very deaf to this, what's going on.
Definitely. That principle really there. That's why Executive President said he want to take Attorney General Department, Police Department and certain other things. So there is a growing trend today. Even the authoritarian is taken by the Prime Minister. Certain things had not happened. President openly said, and they are not talking about the Executive President abolition. So these statements clearly say the authoritarian divided, not like the previous regime.
Shamindra, do you think that the government has got its priorities right, at least now?
No. First of all, I must tell you something about what you just said. I think Yahapal administration, both the SLP and the UMP, should take responsibility for this situation. You cannot simply blame the Prime Minister and the UMP for this situation, right? Now, you take the case of the scam, the central bank scam. Now, if the government allowed, if the administration allowed Mr. Devagunasekara to submit the COPE report in Parliament in 2015, they could have addressed this issue long time back. What happened? They dissolved the Parliament. The UNP, SLP leadership got together and dissolved the Parliament to save those people, right? So what is the point in complaining today? What is the point in complaining?
But you cannot hide the truth at the end of the day, Shamindra. At least now things are coming to light. The President has appointed a Presidential Commission and things are looking at least somewhat good for the people of Sri Lanka, and there seems to be some sort of justice being meted out on the central bank bond scam.
Then, Shamir, they must ensure they recover the monies taken by those people. Billions. Billions, right? So what is the point in, ultimately they will put the blame on one person, a Singaporean. And what about the political leadership, the people who defended that scam in court? Nothing would happen to them. This is a country.
The footnote club.
For us, is a country where defeated candidates, people rejected by MPs rejected by people, come into Parliament through the back door, right? So, what is the point? Now, recently, I think Nagananda Kodituaku has filed a case in the Supreme Court. He's fighting for it. It's very difficult to do anything because obviously the other lawyers are not supporting, right? So when it happens there, when people see that defeated people can go into Parliament, right, at the expense of the original national list, there's something terribly wrong in this country.
I think Shamindra, you made a very important point, because we saw how individuals like Mervyn Silva came to Parliament from the back door after being defeated. And I saw how Basil Rajapaksa, who was not even in the national list, came to Parliament after a particular parliamentarian stepped down, and he came to the forefront.
And I just want to add,
yes,
when Mr. Mervyn Silva contested, I think in 1994, I'm not sure, the former president had Mrs. Silva in the national list. She took votes, then she resigned, and the defeated Mervyn Silva got into the Parliament.
Nobody
opposed.
I gave you a clear example of that happening in the past as well. Mr. De Silva, when we look at this draft in question, the Independent Council for News Media Standards Act, it's very bleak. You say certain things in one paragraph and you contradict it in the other. You say about imposing a fine, you say that there is a competent authority and they will not be accountable to a court of law. We saw this happening before as well. You know, this government appoints commissions and then they are not responsible for the judiciary of the nation. They cannot be prosecuted.
Before that, I must tell you that if you go through the act very carefully, now as far as the information, revealing the information, it is specifically mentioned that no court can ask or force journalists to come out with that. So it is there specifically in that particular section 1, and the other section, it is very clearly, it is also option where if the Supreme Court is of the view, having satisfied with the facts that had been given to them, and if they are of the view it should be called, then only they can do so. Merely because you are publishing something, that does not mean you have to give all the information to the council or to the court. No, that is not correct. It is specifically mentioned, no court can ask anything with regard to the information.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The current system in Sri Lanka clearly indicates that in a closed court, the source, the journalist can reveal the sources. This was very clearly evident, I think, in the Frederica Jans incident with Sarath Fonseca on the white flag incident. She had to publish or give to the court her notebook, which was a piece of evidence that was accepted by the court. So there is already a regulation in place. And we saw the manner in which how Sarath Fonseca had to serve in prison because of that notebook at the end of the day. You're quite well aware of this.
Yes, yes.
So, Mr. De Silva, there is already regulations in place in Sri Lanka.
No,
my point is very simple. Why bring in a new regulation?
No, that is
when
not
you
correct,
already have
because
something
of that only she suffered. But my personal view is, now it is very clearly stated, only the Supreme Court can ask that information. Nobody can ask.
Absolutely, but this is already there.
No,
this is already already in place. Why do you want to have a particular act just focusing on this?
No.
And you say that this competent authority will not even be cannot be even questioned in a court of law.
Oh, that's correct. Those are the things we have to go into. As far as the information is concerned, with regard, this is the very important thing. On most of the journalists, they will think that with this bill we have to divulge everything to this council or the court. No, this is not correct.
You can pick and choose. Can't you pick and choose, Mr. Silva, based on the whim and fancy of those who are going to be appointed in the committee? You can choose whoever you want. You can choose an individual and say, okay, you reveal the source, because this is
not
a threat of national security. That can't happen. But
I must correct you.
But the thing is, it is not stipulated in this draft that has been brought forward.
No, it is there in that draft. It is specifically there that no court can. The court means that council cannot ask anything from the journalist. We want to find out whether any court can ask. That is also not. This is not. That is being prohibited. So then who is going to ask that? Only the Supreme Court can ask. That is also a discussion has been given, not a mandatory thing. So if
what happens if the journalist doesn't reveal the source?
No, that is of course the Supreme Court, after considering everything, if the Supreme Court is of the view that that information should be divulged to the Supreme Court, then it is the duty of the journalist to divulge it.
I will give you a classic example, Mr. De Silva. Now, I have been involved in some of the investigative pieces like the central bank bond controversy, the stock market debacle that took place, the Expropriation Act issues that took place in the year 2011. If someone asked me to divulge my source, I wouldn't do it, because those who gave the evidence. So then what happens to me?
No, nothing will happen to you. You will be safeguarded by the Supreme Court, because Supreme Court is not going to ask you for the sake of asking. So they will go through, it will affect to
But that's already there in the law.
No, I don't
Mr.
think
Silva.
it is
Then
not
why did Frederica Jans come and reveal her notebook to the Colombo High Court?
That is why I am telling you that particular court asked. It has been prohibited. That's why I am telling you. Now, Frederica Jans was asked to bring the notebook by the High Court. This is not, now here they have stated in specific words that no court can ask that. But the Supreme Court has the power. Earlier it was not.
But I recollect, Mr. De Silva, Frederica Jans openly saying that this notebook was given to court beyond her conscience.
That's right. So that is
and because of that reason, you had someone, an army commander who was a celebrated army commander in Sri Lanka, who had to serve a prison sentence. Is this justifiable, Mr. De Silva?
No, that is not justifiable. That is why they have specifically mentioned that section is there to safeguard that type of.
And I remember the Bar Association of Sri Lanka going to courts on behalf of Sarath Fonseca. We saw the manner in which, when your former Chief Justice was impeached, how the Bar Association of Sri Lanka went to the streets and protested. All these things can be done with this particular act coming into play, Mr. De Silva.
This is only a draft, as I told you. We are going to discuss those things in detail, and then finally.
But when, Mr. De Silva, when is this going to be discussed? Even draft is not even given to you.
Today we have started. What
is the paper that you are going to use, Mr. De Silva?
Sorry?
What's the paper, the discussion paper that you are going to use?
It's there in the internet, and then we are going to get that. And then
the internet, Mr. De Silva, the Ministry of the Director General himself does not have a correct copy of it. Because right now we had an issue. Dr. Mahana Meheva has a different copy. You have a different copy. The copy I have
several webs have several copies. So there is
So what is the paper that you are going to discuss, Mr. Silva? What is the paper that you are going to discuss at the forum? Are you going to say, guess what? We have 3 drafts, so I am going to select one. This is the one that I am going to use.
And my draft is High Court. My draft is clearly High Court.
We are discussing. Sorry.
I just want to tell you that you cannot compare General Fonseca's case. You know why? Because General Fonseca was interviewed by Frederica Jans. It was not information given secretly to Frederica Jans, right? So here we are talking about a person, a journalist, receiving information from a person.
But Shamindra, you very clearly said in your opening remarks that you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't reveal your source.
But if I interview somebody, I mean, it's in the open. The Sunday leader carried General Fonseca's interview on page 1.
But Shamindra, if you really revisited this court case, if you really extensively, I followed this court case very extensively. You saw the notebook that was presented to court didn't have certain pages.
And I must tell you, the journalists must be responsible. Now, I can give you one example with names. Frederica Jans carried a story in Sunday leader. She said, she accused Major General Nanda Mallavarachchi of killing his
Mr. Fernando, Shamindra, I don't want to talk about something that
killing a soldier, right?
That is,
now that soldier is still living.
Not in contention at the moment. But the point is very simple. Individuals like you who are investigating, I recollect, Shamindra, I can give you a few examples if you want. You were also very vocal on the central bank bond controversy. In the internet, it says that Shamindra Ferdinando does not understand English. Pattapalburu in the blogs.
Yes,
you just saw it. So
they are free to attack us.
Absolutely. So now, you can't have any government regulating that, can you? Can social media be regulated? Let's take a look at China for an example. China, Facebook is banned. How are they going to be looked in the eyes of the international community as a country that there is no democracy?
But China having their Weibo, they have their own system.
Absolutely. But it's regulated. It's at the end of the day, it's regulated.
More members are there rather than Facebook, China Weibo.
Dr. Mahana, but it's regulated. Let's take a look at Turkmenistan, for an example. One of the only countries that are so-called independent. You cannot even call someone in Turkmenistan because the phones are tapped.
Sri Lanka
cannot
also
even
same.
access
All the phones are
Facebook.
tapped today. Sri Lanka also same.
So,
they have taken the
is this what we want in
devices
Sri
and they are
Lanka?
tapping the
Dr.
phones.
Manav,
All
is
the
this what we want in Sri Lanka?
That's the system.
Is this what we want in Sri Lanka?
Yeah.
Is this what we want in Sri Lanka?
It's happening, no?
It's happening, but
even
this is
you
not
are
what we
calling
want.
there is a democracy, there are devices they have purchased. And they have fed the numbers and easily they can monitor.
And that is why prior to the January 8th polls, they used Viber to topple the government. Yes, Sonali.
Mr. De Silva, in this discussion draft, it says in section 36, under duties and functions of the council, it says within 4 months of the appointment of the first council, it may adopt appropriate codes of practice for news media outlets. Now, we are not aware of the content of these codes of practice which are supposed to govern the entirety of news media in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is trying to move forward towards progressive enhancement of media freedoms and democracy and all of these things. Isn't this a little arbitrary?
Yes,
what are your
yes,
thoughts?
certainly it's arbitrary, because first of all they have to have the guidelines, and then only they can implement it later. But here, of course, they haven't stated what are the things that are necessary, but instead of that they say that you have to adhere to these things. So as you quite correctly pointed, this is arbitrarily they say, but it should be developed into the proper way, and then only they can do that.
But there is an issue. According to this code of conduct or guidelines, the media itself they have to prepare. All private media, they have to prepare their own minimum standards are there. And thereafter it has to be approved by the council, whichever appointed. So they are responsible. The media itself, maybe your media outlet, you have to prepare your own code of conduct guidelines, submit to the council. But minimum standards are there. According to the minimum standards only, but still I can't confirm this. This is only a draft still.
And then we don't know. I don't know whether they have informed the minimum standards also.
That's another issue.
I think
Yes,
I worked
Mr.
for a
Ferdinando.
newspaper for 30 years. For 30 years, since 1987 June, I think we don't need this. Wholly unnecessary thing. Somebody is receiving money. It's an NGO operation. Obviously, I am telling you, right? We don't need this.
Mr. Ferdinando, under duties of this council, it says it has the power to warn or admonish the news media outlet, editor-in-chief, that's you, or the journalist, or disapprove the conduct of the editor-in-chief of the journalist, as the case may be. So, what are your thoughts on that particular clause?
I am not the editor-in-chief. I am the news editor. That's one. And I don't think the government or this council, whatever, can take on the media, right? They are under tremendous pressure. Who can defend this government over Umayyad? The garbage problem, the dengue crisis, right? The hospitals are full of patients. Actually, the government medical sector cannot cope with this situation. So it's a huge crisis, right? So I don't think they can control the situation by seeking explanation from the editors. I think they should ask an explanation from the parliament.
Another point that you brought out, Mr. Ferdinando, is the fact that media cannot be controlled or curbed. However, you may recall how during the previous regime, even social media, various websites were censored.
The previous government controlled the media, right? They had huge media operation, but still the Yahapalana parties, SLP, a section of the SLP headed by Maithripala Sirisena, and the UMP defeated them with all the media. In its controlled by the Rajapaksas or the UPFA. Nothing happened. At January 2015 elections, they lost. They lost in January. They lost again in August 2015. So even if you control all the media, even if you give vehicles, duty-free vehicles to editors, foreign trips, laptops, whatever, you cannot influence the entire electorate. So at the end of the day, the previous government was sent home. So,
Mr. De Silva, do you think that the Bar Association has in the past been politicized? And depending on your answer, what's the situation like right now?
At the moment, as I told you in the first instance when you interviewed me, and as far as also, the Bar Association should be a non-political body, and we were of the view that it should be there for the future also. So, no, if somebody is doing some sort of political business inside the Bar Association, that's a different individual thing. But as a whole, the Bar Council and the Exco Committee and then the main body of the Bar Association, all those are non-political. So we are not biased, or we are not going behind anybody, but we are in a position to express our views independently.
Mr. De Silva, the media in Sri Lanka seems to be perturbed by this first discussion draft of this Independent Council for News Media Standards Act.
Yeah.
The media seems to be perturbed, a little troubled, if you will.
I don't think you have to take that serious in this particular area, because it is a draft, and now likewise you have started it, you have started the dialogue, and then that is how it should be improved. Now if there are unnecessary clauses, as Mahanama quite correctly pointed out, there are some clauses where we are not in agreement with that.
Don't you think, Mr. De Silva, that as the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and as its president, that the BASL has more of a role to intervene and look into the draft and
yes,
the contents of it?
Certainly. I am thankful to you all, because you have invited me to this discussion, and this is a start. And what we are going to do is, we will have a dialogue with the Bar Association members, and then thereafter we will prepare a paper and then submit to the authorities, so that they will consider when they are finalizing this whole program.
But there is
Thank
no
you very
authority.
much.
There is no authority even.
I will.
There is no authority to hand over. Yeah, only Jaivir only you have to submit. That's
We're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, we are discussing about the proposed draft of the Independent Council for News Media Standards Act. All this and more of this short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're with Newsfirst, Face the Nation. I now focus my attention on Shamindra Ferdinando, news editor of The Island. Shamindra, prior to going in for the short commercial break, you brought in a very interesting point. You said an NGO and someone is trying to make money. Are you referring to the Director General of the Media Ministry? Because Toby Mendel, who's a Canadian national, is attached to an NGO that Mr. Ranga Kalansurya was also attached to prior to assuming duties as
No,
DG.
I certainly did not make any reference to Ranga Kalansurya. But I must tell you, if you go through all these documents and other info available, you will realize various embassies are funding projects here. Now, recently we received information and we carried that news that the US has agreed to provide 1.92 billion rupees over a period of 3 years for a range of things to improve accountability, good governance, to have seminars, conferences. Now in this country, the ruling party is inviting the Bar Association to come and educate the honorable members of parliament, right? So then 2 weeks back, a group of UMP MPs were in China, right, courtesy the government of China. Then there were a group of MPs in Germany where they were discussing about constitutional reforms and various other matters. In Canada, the president says the government will not do anything without consulting Mahasangha, right? So lot of funds. In fact, couple of years ago we got a report which revealed the names of organizations which received millions of rupees from Norway. So when the civil society receives
Who's trying to fill their pockets now?
Pardon?
Who's trying to fill their pockets now?
The same people. The governments come and go, but you will realize the people change sides. Right? You take any profession, journalists, lawyers, the corporate sector, you get political appointments, diplomatic appointments. So, like that, the things will continue. So, the people suffering from dengue or, you know, the garbage problem, all the other issues, they have to cope up with.
But in a situation like this, there is conflict of interest, because you have the Director General of the Media Ministry openly in a media briefing saying, yes, it is the organization that I worked before, and that same organization is coming to Sri Lanka to draft a bill.
So you should direct that question to the person who appointed him, right? Now, earlier the government appointed a committee headed by Manori Muttetwegam. Now, that committee recommended the abolition of the PTA, foreign judges and various things. Then the government says we don't know anything about it. The government appointed it. So whoever who authorized the Director General of Information Department should take responsibility. Right? Somebody authorized this operation. So please don't put it on Rangakalan Surya. Somebody must have authorized him to do it. So it's a big operation. The Yahapalana parties are in power, the SLP and the UNP, and they should take responsibility. But nobody wants to take responsibility. They take responsibility for one thing. When it comes to duty-free car permits, you will see the joint opposition, all the political parties working together to protect their right to receive duty-free car permits. And they sell them also. Right? So that's the situation. So this is nothing actually. This is nothing. What is happening in this country is criminal.
Thank you very much, Shamendra Ferdinando.
One point.
Yes, I'll get back to you in a minute, Dr. Mahalameba. I'll just speak to Mr. U.R. De Silva, President's Counsel, and then get back to you, Dr. Mahalameba. Mr. U.R. De Silva, you spoke of something very interesting. You said that your organization, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, would make a draft and submit a paper to the government in order to improve or even abolish this particular draft completely. But my question is, will the government take the Bar Association seriously?
Certainly they are ready to do so, because in
which sense are you trying to say that they will take all seriously, because you all were not even given a draft?
No, this one, of course, I must tell you that they haven't given us any draft. Right. So, but the fact remains that with regard to, as I told you, with regard to the police representation, they consulted us and they adhered to our views, and we protested that, and then they withdrew the bill from the parliament. So that is why we say they are ready to listen to us, and they are in a discussion with us, and then we also very cooperative, and we have suggested our views also to them. So I think this is also, in a way, as Sonali quite correctly asked, the Bar Association has a duty to safeguard the journalist and then the other members also. So that is why I told you on the next occasion, when we meet, we will discuss at length and then prepare a paper and submit to, we can submit to the Prime Minister or to the other authority who is governing this. We will find out from them, and then we will do so. There must be somebody who is in charge of that.
But the point is, Mr. Silva, the government is in a dilemma right now. They seem to not be able to take a proper stand on anything. Let's take a look at the Saitam issue, for an example. Let's take a look at what's happening within the GMOA, for an example. Let's take a look at what's happening to Umayya. Burdens that was encountered and brought forward by the previous regime has now been put on to the present regime. And the present regime cannot make a decision right now. But do you think that they will make their stand clear on a document like this? I know it's a very hypothetical question, But
so we have to be positive and see whether they are going to do
how
anything,
much of positivity is going to take us? How far is it going to take us, Mr.
It is
Silva?
very easy to criticize and say that something that they are not going to do it.
It's not criticism. Let's take a look at the Saitam issue that took place, Mr. Silva.
It's a Saitam issue also now at this stage.
How many protests took place?
That's correct,
Subsequently,
yes.
The GMOA only listened to the Cardinal, who said, don't do it right now. So they said, okay, let's postpone it for a week. Not listening to the government, no control. You're smiling. I am thinking, are you in agreement? You're smiling in agreement?
Government to decide all these things. You are asking me why they are not doing it.
Why aren't they doing it as an independent critic?
My personal view is that they are prolonging it. That is not correct. That I am totally in agreement with you with that regard to that.
Prolonging at whose cost?
No, that's correct. Yeah. No, the Umavoya thing also, that it is a burning problem where they are shifting to the burden to the previous government, which is not correct. I must tell you. Now there are 3 stages in this particular project. So what are they going to do? They have the people who are involved in this, engineers and other government servants. They have not done the proper service.
Mr. Silva,
that is what I am telling you, because I have gone through the reports, and what they have stated in those reports, they have not adhered to those reports. That is the whole issue here.
Mr. Silva, there is something wrong in Sri Lanka's judiciary. That's very clear. In 2009, Lasantha Wickrematunge was murdered. Now it's 7-8 long years. Where is justice? However, we saw Mel Gunasekara being killed by the pain bars who went to her residence. Within 8 months, there was justice.
So that is the police duty. So police have detected the people in a quick time, and this recent robbery also, police say that they have apprehended the suspect within 2-3 days. So likewise, it will depend on the circumstances of each and every case.
So circumstances, that's my point. Circumstances. Don't you think that this bill can be used, if enacted to law? We're discussing this, Mr. De Silva, before it being brought to Parliament in the back door, then approved in Parliament, and then no one is going to be able to talk about it. We're trying to open a public discourse on this matter, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
That's right.
Let's say this particular bill comes into play from the back door of Parliament, approved.
No, it won't happen. It won't happen. Now you have started the forum, and then now you have opened the dialogue, so that people will come to know. The people they are coming out with a lot of suggestions. And now Ferdinand says that it is not proper, and we don't want this type of. So some people might say it is needed, because my personal view is it is needed in the context of special regulations. Now now somebody comes and publish something against my character without proper evidence. So what am I to do? So I have to ask the paper to correct it. This is there in that particular bill. So that's
already there. You don't have to have a new law. That's what I'm trying to say. There's already laws that are being regulated.
Where is it?
That's in the Press Complaints Commission Act.
Sorry?
Press Complaints Commission Act.
That's right. So now what they are going to do is they call all these things into one particular act, and then they will submit to Parliament, and it's law. Then it is a powerful thing. So if the council
it's very clear. It's very clear, Mr. De Silva. What they're trying to do is to regulate electronic media with this particular act, because it's already a Press Complaints Commission Act that regulates the press. However, at certain instances, even electronic media has been penalized, and most of the time electronic media organizations have bowed down to the principles and ethics of the government. They have an incident just a few years ago. A particular radio station was banned by the government for infringing national security, and then we saw how parliamentarians crossed sides, and then they got the license back again. So you have seen incidents of this sort taking place. Mr. Silva, you brought in an interesting thought. You said that Because we're talking about this, there'll be a public discourse. But the point is, when is this going to happen? Because I recollect on the 8th of March 2015, we did our first expose on the central bank bond controversy. On the 26th of March 2015, the governor of the central bank spoke to me and said that there was a mistake that took place. However, when was the Presidential Commission appointed? 1.5 years later, approximately 2 years later.